Sarah's straight up, unfiltered thoughts from lawpreneur Sarah Malik, featuring guests and honest conversations with them about everything to do with life and the professional side of things in between. The podcast that tells it like it is and inspiring while at it. And although Sarah is the host of the show, it only makes sense to make her the star of her pilot episode so that, she gives a quick introduction of who she is and what she does. Sarah, I'm so honored to kick this show off with you. I mean, Sarah straight up sounds exciting just from the title in itself. What can people expect, not just from today's episode, but for the upcoming ones as well?
So this podcast is a little different to others. I wanted to have a platform where it is straight up, it's unfiltered, and people say it as it is. Not a kind of pretty podcast where there's lots and lots of edits. And the reason for this podcast is to really probe into issues that affect many of us, sometimes not all of us. So it's not just to showcase success, it's to showcase journeys and aspirations. And also I hope to have on this podcast some individuals who otherwise don't have a voice. So it's not your traditional podcast that's just aimed at showcasing people who've done extremely well and extremely successful and how they've got there. It's a podcast that's a bit different, and I'm going to probe into why certain things are needed, or, is it correct to be doing things a certain way?
And I think that's very reflective of who you are actually as well, and your take. And if you could just do a quick intro, I mean, for the few who don't know the powerhouse that is Sarah Malik. Sarah has a flourishing 20-plus career in law with a highly successful boutique firm. You also manage several other businesses outside of it, including Sarah Malik Lifestyle, a business and consulting mentorship business, as well as a fashion venture called Sarah M. But in your own words, apart from that professional side of things, I mean, who is Sarah? Not just what you do, but who you truly are.
I'm somebody who's known to be very straight-talking, no-nonsense kind of person, very disruptive, always have been. From childhood, I've always kind of called out things. I've always questioned things. As a person, I love kind of entertaining. I love going out. I'm quite social. I like going to the gym. I like traveling. I have various interests. Sarah is a person who's a professional, who's got the hustle, who's got the academia, who's got the real kind of street life. So it's a bit of a mix of both. I kind of transcend both worlds, if you like. So sometimes people are just very, very academic or very kind of entrepreneurial and business focused. And I bring those two worlds together, which is why I think I do more than just the law. And I've become to be known as a lawpreneur.
As you've said, I mean, you knock it out the park with business and law and pretty much everything in between, your mom as well. I mean, from the business side of things, how did you make that pivot to build businesses outside of, quote unquote, your comfort zone of legal, especially Sarah Malik Lifestyle? And what do you love most about these other niches?
So Sarah Malik Lifestyle was really born out of demand, organic demand. So I had the consultancy, the legal consultancy. I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 25 years. And increasingly worldwide, people started to ask, we'd like to be mentored. Businesses started to come to me for non-legal, i.e. not to review contracts or not to kind of, help them get out of disputes, but for operational and strategic. People started to come to me in relation to, how can I build my brand? How can I be more visible? How can I be a bit more like you, if you like? And there was so much demand daily that I thought, well, obviously there's a need, and I can't, respond to every single person who comes along. So there was clearly a need that I then made into a business, because those who are very serious about doing it and equally the businesses have then come through, followed through. So it's an organic kind of move from the legal. People saw what I was doing. I speak a lot internationally. I speak on worldwide stages. And that inspired a lot of people as well, saying, well, we'd like to do that, but we'd also like to have the skill set, the confidence, the ability to speak. Can you help us? So Sarah Malik Lifestyle was born, and it turned into bespoke mentoring, consultation, a bit about being a person, if you like, strategic operational advice, travel. So it kind of encompasses who I am, and I get to share that with others.
And those are for the believers who initially already saw that, this person can be beyond legal. But for the skeptics out there, and I'm sure you've had a couple who would say, hey, Sarah, aren't you just a lawyer? Aren't you always just in legal? What makes you a a key opinion leader when it comes to these other niches that seem so outside of you, like fashion and sports and tech, etc.?
Look, it's a fair question, but I talk the talk, I walk the walk. And I think those who think it can't be done limit themselves. Maybe they can't do it or they don't see anyone else who's doing it. And I understand that, especially from a kind of legal background or legal profession. It's very rare to see somebody step outside of that comfort zone and do other things. My answer to those skeptics is, well, you're seeing it, and you're seeing it kind of globally. I'm not just saying it. So I think that legal kind of mind and skill set can be applied in so many different industries. I come from a background of fashion. I grew up in it. My parents were in fashion, and I saw it growing up as a child. I've always had a love of sports, again, background of sports. It all became natural for me to kind of venture into these industries. And with things like fashion and sports, you need to be part of the industry as well as just kind of advising or being able to provide any guidance.
Right.
And I've always been somebody who's liked both of those areas. Same with kind of entertainment and art. So again, I walk the walk, I talk the talk, I live that life. So those who think it can't be done, well, keep watching.
Love that. And I mean, talk about the Sarah Malik lifestyle is divided into two, right? You've got the bespoke mentorship and you've got the business consulting. Let's talk about business consulting first. Talk to me about what businesses love about the Sarah style, the Sarah way, and sort of your success really more there.
Well, businesses like the fact that I go into business and I really become part of that business. I get to know the inside out where they are positioned, where they want to go, and how they think they're going to get there. And then I give them real talk about, well, you need to drop that, you need to think about this, you need to think about policies, procedures, your personnel, and your vision. So they like the fact that I don't just kind of go in and be given a pretty paper and say, can you do this? I'm like, I can, but what about 1, 2, and 3? So it's always outside the box. I don't just kind of take a brief and say, okay, let's just concentrate on this. Part of why they engage me for their operational strategy is to get ideas as well. They might not take them on board, that's okay, but they like to have that communication and conversation about, well, if we go down this avenue, what happens? If we go down avenue B, what happens? And they like the fact that I'm able to kind of think holistically and, be very kind of straight in what I'm saying. Whether they choose to follow a certain route or not, I support what they want. But I'm always ensure they understand first what they want, and then we implement, rather than just kind of blindly following or accepting what they're saying.
Could you give me an example? I know you've worked with everybody from startups to mid-level companies and to those big companies that seem to be failing, and you're kind of the emergency kit to aid. If you could give me an example for each of how you stepped in, what you were able to do, and the big impacts and changes that were made after.
Well, I've been involved with some businesses that have come to me as they're already set up. And I've given my view on, for example, it might be their name, it might be the way they're approaching the market and saying, well, I think this is wrong for this and that reason. They've taken it on board. We've changed slogans, we've changed mantras, we've changed the approach. I've got them more visible. Part of what I believe any business in this day and age, especially with tech, especially with social media, you can't escape it. It doesn't matter how traditional you are. And those who are the non-believers and say, oh, well, I don't need to be on social media, we put a presence that goes with the business branding. It's not, you don't have to be crazy doing TikTok videos,
right,
but you do need to be present. So businesses have come in and we've changed around or helped them to develop and get to the next level. In terms of startups, I take on board that legal or mentoring, or whether it's operational advice or strategic, they're all very reluctant spends to some degree, because businesses sometimes want to do that when they are cash rich. And when you're a startup, you have very limited resources, not lots of finance to play around with, and so many pressing needs. So when I look at businesses who are starting up, we look at what's actually needed and strip away the fancy stuff which we leave to a later stage. And I think the startups appreciate the fact that we always say that being preventative is better than being reactive. So if you have your cards laid out properly and you're ready, you're going to excel more in the long term. But equally, we keep a very commercial mindset. And I think the tech startups especially like that I'm not trying to say, well, you need to drop, X amount on this or that.
Right.
And we keep it as curtailed, looking at the different verticals that the business needs, but to ensure that they are moving and get to where they need to get to.
A tricky part of these things is the issue is not the team itself, but sometimes the founder or the main guys running the business. I'm sure you've had a couple of those instances. How did you maneuver through that? Was it a conversation, like a one-on-one, and being like, actually, you're the problem, or what? How did you go about it?
It's a very good question, and the answer is yes. It can get quite heated because I'm not gonna, kind of stand back and not give my view or opinion, and they might not like it, but that's why they're paying me, right? They're not paying me to hear what they want to hear. They're paying me to hear what they need to hear. Founders can really get it wrong. Founders are brilliant. They have this great kind of vision, and they know what they want to do, or they might have a great service or a great product that they want to market. But how they do it is often not properly executed, and that's where people like us come in to say, you are a visionary, you have this great idea, but in order to succeed, it's not just your idea. There's a whole holistic approach that goes in from your team, from the infrastructure, from your foundations. And if they don't want to hear that because they're very single-minded, they're just thinking of the product, then people like me come in and say, no, you have to hear it, and if you decide not to follow it, that's okay. But then don't say to me that you didn't hear it from me.
Right.
So founders, I've got a lot of respect for them. I think it takes a certain kind of person to be a founder, being one myself. It's not for everyone. People like to kind of know where they stand, but some people, and those who make a difference, often are seen to be a bit eccentric and crazy to begin with their novel ideas. But they, as I say, founders don't always have the right execution. They have the right vision.
Apart from the founder flu, I mean, what other common pitfalls do businesses fall into that you've seen from your clientele? Give me about 3, probably the major ones.
Businesses are built without taking the personnel and the infrastructure with them, and that's a huge problem. So again, going back to a great founder who has a great vision, in order to grow the business, you need departments. You need to have people seated doing things who are accountable and have responsibility. And initially, you may start off with the founder doing everything. And they're doing accounts, and they're doing HR, and they're doing marketing, and they're doing branding. And as they grow, those departments then need to be put into place. And there needs to be clear mandates of who's doing what. And often you'll find that founders will grow very, very quickly, or businesses will grow, but they don't bring the infrastructure with them, and that causes a huge crash. I was involved in one of the biggest crashes of a unicorn in this jurisdiction for that very reason, because the personnel, the people, the infrastructure, the policies didn't grow. And that's really important. I also think businesses fall into a bad habit, or it naturally happens, of working in silo. So even if they put the departments into place, they're not working together, and they're not working for the better of the business. They're not having the meetings that are needed, or any kind of cross-referring or selling or working on the same kind of mantra. And that's all about communication. And that, again, comes down to having the right people in play. The founder can't do everything. The founder's, carrying on the vision of the business. You need a decent team around you. And I found that sometimes businesses, the problem they have is they don't have the right people in place to grow them the way they need to grow, and with the vision, but equally to people who are able to stand their ground and say, actually, I don't think this is right, or I don't think this is wrong. You don't want a bunch of yes people around you. In order to succeed, you need those who will call you out, who will say, okay, but what about this? And I think that lacks in a lot of businesses, because sometimes people don't, think it's not about me. I need to follow the vision of this business. True, you need to have a vision, you need to have a mantra, you need to have communication, but you all need to work together, and you all need to not be scared to bring your ideas to table. Sometimes businesses fall foul of listening to understand, and they often just listen to respond.
What is one thing, I mean, as cheesy as this sounds, but the one golden nugget that really takes a business from, my backyard $100 to a $1 million kind of multi-million-dollar business?
Consistency. You said one thing, but consistency, perseverance. You have to keep going. Nobody knows the day they suddenly hit, right, or how that's going to happen, or where it's going to come from. But if you turn up, show up, and you keep going, somewhere that will happen. If you decide, well, I've done it now for 2 months and I've had enough and I'm not doing it anymore, you know what? Your success might have come in month 6 or month 4 or maybe at the end of 1 year. But if you're going to give up there and then you're never going to be successful. The opposite of success is not failure. The opposite of success is giving up. And I think that's why I say consistency and determination is what differentiates those who will make it and those who kind of fall off. It's easy to give up. It's easy to say, well, it's not working. You hear all the stories about big businesses who've had to remortgage, resell, they're on their last dollar, and then they suddenly make it. I'm not saying, get into that kind of level of debt, but if you really have a vision and conviction in what you're doing, then your consistency in your approach and the way you do it is going to make the difference.
I think a lot of businesses also transition from one thing to the other. I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think, but like Samsung started out as a completely different kind of brand. Same for others. At what point does a company or does a business or founder say, it's not about giving up, but this is not our route. This is not for me, and it's time for me to pivot?
I think it's when the market will tell you. The market will tell you. You're absolutely right about Samsung, Nokia. Many of them started off doing totally different things. And I think the market will tell you how your product or your service is being received. Mm-hmm. And also I think you yourself, when you have a passion and you realize, actually, I'm doing this, but it's not really what I want to be doing, you'll pull that back in and you'll rein back in. And again, hopefully have a team of people you can bounce ideas off. So I think the idea, it's organic. Again, there's not a kind of stop point. There's not after a week, a month, or 2 months. It's a bit of trial and error. And actually, that's a good thing because sometimes failing is the best stepping stone to succeeding. You have to know what doesn't work before you know what does work.
And I think that ties in as well with, of course, your mentorship. And you said this came out of pure demand, and you get, hundreds and thousands of DMs on LinkedIn. It's come to a point where you're like, let's create a business out of this, et cetera. And so just put me in the shoes of what it would be like to be a mentee of yours. Like, example, we have a one-on-one session together. What can I expect from that sit down?
Well, firstly, I want to know that you know who you are, where you're positioned in the market and where you want to go. What do you want? What do you want from me? I need you to understand that. I think you're living in cuckoo land if mentees come and say, I'm going to do 5 sessions with you or 10 and then suddenly I'm going to be you. It doesn't work like that, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't want them to be me. I want them to be the best version of themselves, which is what I encourage, not to be a bad photocopy of someone else. So your first session is me getting to know you, me understanding what you know about yourself, i.e. your strengths, your weaknesses, where you want to go. What's your plan of getting there? What do we need to do to upskill you? Where are you going wrong? And how can we fix that? And how can we make sure that we get from A to B? I will also then kind of ask you or probe you and say, well, have you thought about X or Y? Are you writing? Are you doing this? Are you visible? Are you attending X, Y, or Z? And I'll, give homework if you like to say, before I see you next time, I want to know that you have done X, Y, and Z, or that you have shown me that you're committed. Otherwise, you're wasting your money. I don't want to just sit and talk to you. I want a result for you. But I need to know that you're committed to yourself, because I like to work with those people who are motivated, who want to go somewhere, who have the hunger within to do that. There's only so much I can do. It's on you. A lot is on you to make sure that you're not just wasting your time or money by having a mentor, but you are actually learning and you are absorbing and you are listening and you are putting that into play. It would be nonsense to sit here and say that you can do any course across the world that's going to make you a leader overnight. It comes with experience. Sure, you can have the tools and the mentorship, and having these kind of courses is really good because it shows you who you are and who you can be. But a lot depends on you and relies on you. And
this isn't a cookie cutter program, obviously. And I'm sure you've come to a point where you meet someone who's great, who's fantastic, who's very driven, but you just feel like the compatibility isn't there. How do you determine whether a mentee is for you for the Sarah Malik way?
I can pretty much determine straight away from a phone call, from an initial kind of even Zoom, just from their expectation, just from what they're willing to do or not to do, and sometimes a vibe, just an energy between people. I don't take everybody on. And that's not because I'm being difficult or I don't want to help people, but I don't think my approach is for everyone. Sometimes some people need a different approach. And I'm not the kind of person who's going to sit and tell them what they want to hear or have a pity party or feel sorry for them. And so the approach of being very direct doesn't work for everyone. And I can pretty much sound that off from some communication I have with them. And, if somebody's easily offended or doesn't want to take constructive criticism, they're not going to excel in the program because they're going to feel like they are being attacked, which is not what it's about. I call it tough love. I do the same with my children. Like, I want to see you at a place of excellence, and I'm going to call out when there's bad behavior or when I feel you're not giving yourself justice or not giving 100%. And that's not for everyone. They don't want to hear it, they get offended. So I can pretty much work out, and I think, with my background being a lawyer for 25 years and being on the scene, I can pretty much work it out in a few minutes.
Is this tough love, I guess, your stamp of Sarah? This makes your approach stand out from other kinds of mentorship?
I think so. And I think if you speak to anyone who's been a mentee of mine, or even on a trainee, for example, in the legal firm, they'll tell you the same. I'm sure at some point, they hate me and say, why is she doing this? Why is she kind of, so kind of firm on us? But ultimately, they all at the end are like, wow, we're so glad you did that. And it's made us who I am today. And you don't understand it when you're going through the process or the journey. And it's the same, as I say, I draw the analogy with the children, my own children. I'm like, if you don't like me at times and you're fed up of me or I'm calling you out or you're sick of me, I'm doing a good job because I'm being your parent and I'm going to get you to a place. And when you're a lot older, you'll understand why. And I think it's the same with mentees, that if they walk away thinking, I'm totally satisfied and I'm happy, well, I've not pushed them out of their comfort zone. I want them to be a bit scared. I want them to be nervous. I want them to be excited. I want them to think, I can't, but I will. Otherwise, it's very easy to just keep everybody in their comfort zone. How are they growing? So that's a difference in my approach, that I will test you, I will push you out of your natural habitat.
And I'm curious to know if this was based off of your own mentee-mentor experience. Where did you get this kind of approach? Did you have a mentor growing up as well?
I didn't have an actual mentor, that I kind of sought out, but I was very, very lucky and fortunate to be trained by someone who is superb. And I hold her in the highest of esteem. And she was pretty much like this, and probably worse. Where, there was this commitment to excellence, and she would call out and she would say, and that's how I learned. And I really respected it. And at the time, I was like, my goodness, this is so much. But I wouldn't be sat here today, right now, if I hadn't had that approach from her. So not a formal mentor, no. And I don't think everybody needs a mentor, to be honest. Like, some people don't. And again, when going back to your initial question of, do you not take some people on? I think some don't. I think some actually don't need it, right? And I will tell you straight if I think you don't need it. But I was very much kind of inspired by her, and even to date, look up to her. So there's an approach that comes from, about 25 years ago.
Amazing.
Of how I was trained.
Amazing. At what point does one say they recognize they do need a mentor and it's not just self-doubt, but at what point in your career is it probably the time to onboard yourself, a mentor, to take yourself to the next level?
You can do it really at any stage. It depends on what you want, i.e. understanding your goal. So I have people who are students who want to basically get into the workplace or to be one step ahead of others, whether it's on their CV in terms of their experience, in terms of doors that are opened for them through kind of sponsorship. Because when I'm mentoring people, I don't just mentor, I open my world to them. People who've come under my kind of mentorship are on first terms names basis with leaders globally. So I open doors for people. But I think you yourself know, some people will do it very early on. Some people might feel they hit a glass ceiling at work and they need to go to the next level and they need some help. And some might just feel that they're just cruising and they want they get bored and they want to kind of take it to the next level. So there's never I'm not going to say to you, right, when you've reached a certain level of management in your career, that's when you should be a mentor. You should seek out a mentor. I was lucky enough, again, not to officially have a mentor, but have that relationship very, very early on when I was a student, when I was studying for the bar. At that stage, they used to put us together with more senior people, so we could kind of learn off them. We could hang out with them. We could learn the ways of the world. So I don't think it's ever too early to have a mentor, and there's certainly not a cut-off point or a general point in people's career. You will know. You will know yourself that you're being passed over for promotion, or you're not hitting the targets the way you're supposed to, or your work's being overlooked, or you're finding it difficult to open that door, and you know your ability once that door is open. So there's no specific point in a career that anybody needs it.
You said it's not too early to start, but is there such a thing as it's too late to start? And this goes into ageism as well, saying, you have like Tom Brady, Lewis Hamilton, these guys over 40 who are making it big, and probably having a mentor up there as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's ever too late to start anything, whether you seek out a mentor, start a new business, whatever you want to do. I started my legal business at the age of 40. I was a barrister before that, independent, self-employed in chambers. But my own setup, I took at the age of 40. I opened another business at 43, 44, the lifestyle business. I opening a fashion business at the age of 46. So you could say, well, people have got 20 years on you. They might have. I have the experience. So it's never too late. And if you look at, I don't know, I think KFC Colonel, wasn't he in his 60s?
Over 50, or 60,
And people have, age doesn't and shouldn't stop you. I think that's just a myth for those who want to believe that that's going to kind of deter them from going further.
Capping off mentorship, and I guess focusing more on your journey, and as you said, you started at 40. Some people might feel like that's such a long time from now for me, or I don't know, that's just a jarring concept to think about. Did you ever feel like things were a bit too slow from your end, or it was just a matter of this is my own timing?
No, it was all timing, and I'm a huge believer in timing. Don't ever compare yourself to anyone, which is why I say it's never too early and it's never too late. You're on your own journey, you're on your own track. The way we kind of belittle ourselves or we undermine ourselves is by comparing to someone else. We don't start from the same platform. We don't start from the same kind of equitable backgrounds. People, may well have started earlier. They may well have had opportunities in life that others haven't. You don't know people's circumstances, what they've had to do in their 20s or 30s. So it's all about timing. So I don't think it's ever too late or too early. Certainly with me, I don't think I was ready when I was ready. I came into this jurisdiction. I spent about 3 years working. I'm now probably unemployable. I don't think I'd employ myself. And then decided to go solo into business. But it was about timing. Would I have done it 3 years earlier? I wasn't ready. I didn't have the right kind of tools. I didn't have the infrastructure. I didn't have the knowledge of the landscape. When did I start the lifestyle business? It came through organic demand. Some could say, oh, well, it's really late on and, you should have studied something to do with this in your 20s or otherwise. Well, no. It grew from a demand. Same the way the fashion organically grew from the other businesses. So no, it's never too late. And I don't feel like I've lost time on anything I do. Who knows what the future holds and what I'll be doing in my 50s or 60s, inshallah. But let's see.
Love that. Biggest career failure or mistake? And how did you emerge victorious from it?
I think we've all gone through failures in life. I've been blessed, touch wood. It's not so much been career, probably on a personal level. Career, I've kind of sailed through. I was one of those lucky kids who was super academic, did really well in school, was put up a year, aced my exams, etc. And then when I started working, I straight away I kind of did well. I've had career failures where perhaps I've not always surrounded myself with the right people. And I think that can make or break a career. I think when you look around you, you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with. We've heard that lots of times, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And equally with professionals. So if you are amongst those who inspire you, you will go places. And I think sometimes, and maybe in my career, I've not always done that. And I've learnt from that. Personally, I've had setbacks in life, like a decade ago, but I emerged from that thinking, well, I'm not going to let something like that define me or victimize me. I always see everything not as a challenge, but as how can I come out of this better what's the solution? I don't dwell on problems. I don't dwell on the issue. I dwell on the solution and focus on things getting better.
You said you're the sum of the 5 people around you from a career perspective. Who are the 5 people around you? Or how would you sort of tag them or categorize them for other people? I want to be as successful as you. I want to be Sarah Malik level. Who are the 5 kinds of people I should surround myself with?
People that inspire you. People that when you sat at a table, you're talking about business, you're talking about goals, you're talking about, where you want to be. You're not talking about other people.
Gossip,
you're not talking about gossip. You're not talking about who's wearing what, but you're talking about leveling up. Mm-hmm. And you'll know from your own friends crowd. And also and look out amongst your people, those who truly do back you and support you and clap for you. Because there's lots of kind of people around you who are not really your people. And you get to know that during various times in life. So I think you need to be quite astute. And I think if you're a person who generally gives or generally opens doors, you judge people by those standards, and not everybody's the same. So I think you really need to take a good look at those that you are hanging out with. Do you have similar interests? Are you going in similar directions? Do you have similar values? Or are they just a bit of fun? I'm not saying don't have people in your life who are a bit of fun, but if you want to excel, then your crowd and your day-to-day and your people need to be people who inspire you. How do you do that? You seek out the right people, and equally, you distance yourself or you move away from those people who are not part of that circle.
And I think, as you said, right, it's not to mean that you shouldn't have a bit of fun or have a bit. How do you balance then that kind of crowd, or even just in your own life? How do I stop myself from being a robot or being AI generated, but just being all work, 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 and still be my own human being, still be my own person outside of my career?
Look, I believe in work hard, play hard, and those who know me know that that's exactly what I do. So probably a person of extremes. I will work, and then when I play hard, right? Mm-hmm. So not that that's necessarily works for everyone, but I do think you need to have balance. I do think that you need to be able to have an outlet. I work out. I enjoy socializing. I have a very close-knit group of friends that I see or speak to regularly. So I do think it's dangerous to fall into just becoming a robot. It is part of leveling up and succeeding. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, you can do your 9 to 5 and you're going to get to a certain level. You're not. And sometimes some of us have worked silly hours and ridiculous hours to get where you need to get. But then once you're there, or once you feel like you're near there, you then need to take a back seat. Human nature is always, I want to get more and more and more. When do we sit back and say, I've arrived at a place I'm comfortable at and now let me enjoy? Mm-hmm. And I think that was always my mantra, that I want to get to a place where I'm kind of independent in terms of financially free, mm-hmm. and I can then enjoy and pursue things I want to do rather than what I have to do. And I think I'm in that zone now. So I think it's very unhealthy to just work. But I'm not going to lie and say there's not a tremendous amount of work and grit that needs to go in. I think there's a saying, and it's a quote I'll always kind of hang on to, which is along the lines of, save while they spend, work while they party, study while they sleep, and mm-hmm. then live like they dream. Mm-hmm. And everybody who's successful in the world, whatever discipline they're in, have gone the extra mile. They do what others don't to succeed, right? And what I mean by that is they put extra work. Everybody sees the end result, and everybody might see me, whether it's on LinkedIn or any kind of social media or on international stages. They don't see the journey. They don't see the sacrifices. They don't see what's gone on behind closed doors to get there.
So essentially, it's smelling the roses, but having the card to do so, having the earn that state of where you are. And I don't think you're fully resting now. I mean, you're still building all these businesses, but I think it's more on the passion side of mm-hmm. things, and so it's a much different, I guess, approach. And people can obviously tell that you're quite the storyteller, and you're a very effective communicator. There's no doubt in that. I mean, cheesy again, but secret sauce to effective communication for you.
Be yourself. Be your true self. Don't try and be somebody else. Don't copy other people. Just be yourself. Obviously, the more junior you are, you kind of have to stick to the accepted, boundaries. But that's not to say that you need to kind of emulate or be something that you're not. I think the reason, and certainly when I speak to people or hear from people, the reason they resonate with me, the reason they might follow me, the reason, I may inspire them is because I am very much myself, raw and authentic. And I think in a world full now of AI and tech and false, the real story and the real person shines through. Mm-hmm. So I think you really need to be yourself and not be scared to be yourself.
I think we keep jumping back and forth because of all just these gold nuggets that you keep saying. But how does one get to that point wherein they can be unapologetically themselves? I mean, we can do that maybe for time, and then something huge happens, and then they pull back, and it's hard to bring that confidence back in. Was that something that took a couple of years for you, a couple of elbow grease to get into, or have you always just wanted to be like that and managed to do so?
I think I've always been like that. Mm-hmm. I think from childhood, and I see it in my daughter, that I've always been myself. I've always kind of, led the rebellion, being the one who'll ask something, call out what I don't understand. It actually got me into trouble in school days because I'd question and I wouldn't just blindly accept, what I was being taught, whether it was in history or geography. Mm-hmm. And the teachers didn't like that because they don't know how to deal with somebody who's not just willing to understand and accept and is willing to question, especially a child in school. But I encourage that with my daughter. She's the same. And she will, even at the age of 3, I asked her to remove a bracelet because it wasn't allowed at school. And she says, well, when they show me the sign on the window, Mummy, or on the table, if it's written, then I'll take it off. And I was like, she has a point.
That's such a lawyer mindset too.
It's a lawyer, but I think it's sometimes something from within that you have something inside you where you kind of stand your ground. I was fortunate. I've always been like that. I've had the confidence to do that from day one. Mm-hmm. And even as a very junior lawyer, I used to, whether it was with a judge, whether it was in court, I'd call out bad behavior. And I know everybody can't, and I know jobs depend on, the way you act. And unfortunately, it's a world where we still do have to play a role. But I think, 1, the more senior you become, and 2, the more successful you become, the less you really need to care about whether everybody or anybody thinks your path or your way of doing things is correct or not. As long as you know what you're doing is correct and you're staying in your lane and you can kind of justify to yourself why you do what you do, you don't have to justify it to anyone else.
Apart from being really fully yourself, how do you manage all facets of who you are and show up as the best version of yourself, as the best Sarah there is?
There's no magic formula, and it's hard, and that's the reality. You will have sometimes really bad days, but you will perform. And you might be, pulled in 5-10 different directions, but when you take that stage or when you're doing an interview or whatever else is going on, you're giving it 100% when you're sat there. So whether you're at work, whether you're with a client, whether you're with your child, you are in the moment and you are giving 100% at that time. And it doesn't matter what else is going on because you'll deal with it, when you've finished. And I think that's what you have to do. You can't beat yourself up. You can't dwell on anything else that's going on that might be a problem, but you've got to be fully focused. And I think the audience or people, whether it's your clients or whether it's your family, pick up on that vibe. So I think the only way to juggle so many different hats and so many different demands on your time is that when you are doing something, do it properly and do it with heart, or don't do it. And it is difficult sometimes because, there's so much going on in the background people don't know about. But you can't feel guilty about it and you can't beat yourself up about it. We're human at the end of the day. And you know what? Sometimes errors happen. And I think as long as you are professional enough and do yourself justice, that you can, for example, I'm sat here doing this interview. There might be 1,000 other things that have got demands on my time, but I'm focused on this because this is hugely important to me. And you know what? Within 5 minutes when this is finished, I might switch to something else. And that's how you manage your time. You allocate your time. And also, I think I'm a person of lists. I love kind of being organized and having lists and marking them off. And my team and everyone who works with me knows that I'm really, really precious about lists and getting things done. It's the only way I can organize my kind of hectic schedule is by being really organized, having these lists and ensuring things get done. Time is very, very precious. Time, as you know, is a very precious commodity in my life because you're pulled in so many different directions.
And so with that, I want to cap off with a couple of rapid fire questions. I got 9 here, and you have to answer them as quick as you can. I'm sure this is something that you're quite used to. But we'll start then with the first one. Number 1, biggest myth in achieving success.
That it's only hard work.
Share someone you look up to and why.
The lady who trained me as a lawyer for being an absolute awesome role model.
A quote you will never stop sharing, apart from the other one that you've just shared.
Work hard, play hard.
Biggest misconception of being a lawpreneur.
That it's easy.
Biggest trend in the fashion business today.
Sustainability.
Worst advice anyone can take.
You can't do it.
Your top prediction in tech and AI this year.
It's going to blow. It's going to be huge.
Sarah, in 3 words.
Raw, reliable results.
What's next for you?
Well, we have the fashion venture. I'm wearing one of my own, Sarah M, which will launch very, very shortly. It's luxury couture, and there'll also be a resort, and we'll have a special edition for Ramadan.
Perfect.
Super excited about that. And once that's all launched, I'm looking at something else in the pipeline, which is a huge booming industry at the moment, globally and especially so in the UAE, which I'll say very little about at this stage.
Oh, no. We can't even get a slight clue as to what it is.
There is another venture in the pipeline. I don't think I can sit still. That's my problem.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a problem that served you quite well your entire career.
A problem that's actually become a solution.
I'd love for you to do the outro then of your own pilot episode and invite everybody to watch Sarah Straight Up and to look forward to the next episodes.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Go ahead. If you could just do a little bit of an outro for them.
So this is Sarah Straight Up. I hope you enjoy the series of podcasts that I'm going to deliver. This is a pilot episode, so you'll get an idea of who I am. I'm going to be interviewing people from industry, from business, those who are maybe starting out, those who may not have a voice otherwise on a separate platform. But we're going to keep it raw and real, no fancy edits, no, cuts, let's start again. It is what it is, bloopers and all. And that's because we're going to be straight up, raw and real.